Welcome to Black, Red, and Blue Fancast. This is AJ, and I'm joined today by Steve.
It's me, Steve.
We have one heck of a game to talk to you about. It was actually interesting because between Steve and I, we actually went to 3 different games. I ended up going to my first Battlehawks game and Battlehawks game today on Sunday. And Steve actually was lucky enough to go to the Kansas City game, so he's going to talk briefly about that. But I got to say, like, just the Battlehawks real quick, like, man, like if you like a rowdy crowd, kind of almost like a party crowd, you would love the Battlehawks game. They had like little beach balls flying everywhere. Every time there was points scored, there were streamers everywhere. Like, these guys really love their football. You know, Stan Kroenke said that we're not a sports football town. I think they're telling him otherwise. You know, it was kind of cool to actually see people tailgating and everything. And then I went to the Cardinals game today, but we're not going to talk about it because that's just utterly depressing today. It was total lack of offense. One thing I was going to tell you too, Steve, you'd find this interesting. My niece, she is like 9 or 10. She went to her first City 2 game, which has typically been great for families to go to, you know, cheaper tickets, just good family environment. And I think the whole family's surprised because she was just like cheering like crazy. She absolutely loved it. And I just, you know, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen next few weeks. Like, is she going to be interested in watching it on TV, or is she a total environment type of girl? But we'll see. So tell us about your Kansas City trip.
So like another sporting event, my father, who is a lifelong Cardinals fan, took my sons on Friday night. And I kind of follow along with the match, with the game. See, I am soccer mode. And like they got down and there was a bases loaded experience. And I texted my sons, I was like, you need to pay attention to this because this is a big baseball moment. Bases loaded, 2 outs, like, and the guy wound up striking out, but like, that's a baseball moment. And they got to experience that. And they also got to experience tying a game late and then the other side of losing late. And they were kind of upset about that, but they got a Jordan Walker bobblehead. I've got some family members that are really going to dig that. So like between the two of us, our families went to 5 different sporting events this weekend. And so it's so cool. Sports in St. Louis is something else. We are so damn lucky to have all these different teams in our town. And I feel blessed, and I feel it's great to experience, and it's good to be able to complain and talk about the sports in this town. Because some cities don't, you know. So, So, by the way, BRB Fancast on all the socials. Hit us up there if you want to comment or talk to one of us about anything you hear. AJ is over there on Reddit. I am too. I am now under the BRB Fancast account on Reddit. So if you see us up there, see our awesome logo, me commenting, that's us. And reach out there if you want to talk to us. We're just hanging out. We're not going to beat you down with any analytics or any data. You know, we throw in some that we feel we will be talking about with our friends. And that's that. So BRB Fancast. Funny story with this. I am trying to get more people to want to experience city soccer, especially people who would never consider soccer before. And so at the Super Bowl, one of my buddies came and I was like, I'm part of this big thing. It's called St. Louis City. It's super awesome. He's like, Dad, whatever. He's like, do we want to go to a game? And I chuckled. I'm like, you got $200? Like, we can't go here. We can go see them in Kansas City. Would you want to? He said, sure. And I haven't heard from him since. You know, life gets along. Yeah, I can buy tickets right now. Do we want to go? And he got his 17-year-old teenage son to go too. And we scheduled it. I bought the tickets. And we were going to go. So I picked him up yesterday at noon and we drove out, and I got to talk about the little bit about soccer that I know. And they asked me questions. I talked to him. When we got to Kansas City, I had my city stuff on. I brought them my spare jersey. So they got to wear the jersey, got to play dress up like Barbies. Nice. And I brought some extra scarves so they could be part of it. And we got to where the tailgate was, and they're like, why are they playing music? And I was like, okay. And we got out, and there are a lot of people there. There's a couple hundred people out there already. And they got to experience people running around with all their different outfits on. The Santos were there and all their gear. The Punks were there with their flags and their vests. And they really started to get excited. And we did the march in, and we did Vamos, and We Are SCL, and we did all the cool chants. And I told them that you'll be able to experience all like the songs. Don't worry, they're easy to learn. And they did. And they're not as type A as I am, so they just kind of soaked it all in, and they had a good time. So we get into the stadium, and I was telling you beforehand that Children's Mercy is really similar to City Park in the way it's constructed. And we get in and we walk around, and instead of City Park where there's 2 layers, only one kind of level for seating, and it's just down looking into the pitch. And I started talking with a season ticket holder, and the very first thing this cat says to me, I'm wearing this jersey, and I got my North End scarf on, the lunatic scarf, the Luthians. And he looks at me and says, there's something on your scarf. You spilled something. I was like, oh yeah, that's excellent. Sorry. And we got to talking, and he said that if Polito were to score the first goal, he made a bet and he would win $350. And I said, well, I hope he does for you, but then I hope we score 3 more. We gave each other high fives and we took off. And when Polito scored that goal, the first goal, my buddy and I looked at me like, yeah, I'm going to find this guy at halftime. Don't worry about it. We're going to go see if he won. He got his money. And we went over to the visitor section, and it was packed. It was sold out. And there were a bunch of, Kansas City fans, and we really didn't get messed with because there's like hundreds of us there. It was insane. And when the game started, they have a very similar entrance that we do. They dip the lights, they play the music. It's exciting. Tons of kids stuff all around. Like, they really are big on kids. And this is why when I heard about the FSTL chant, this morning I heard about that. I was kind of disappointed because there's so many kids there. There's so many kids there. And this is what the fans decided to do with their time. But the overall experience was really great, except that, I got to say that the fans there seem to be under a lot of pressure. They do. They haven't been really successful since they won the Open Cup in 2017. It's been a downward slide since then. And they did not seem to have fun. Even when they scored their goals, there were some cheers, but then it died immediately. A City, you score a goal, it's like 3-4 minutes before the buzz starts to calm down. This was, woo! And then they were done. It was insane. I might as well say, I was personally targeted by a couple of drunk fans that were upset that we were cheering. These people came to the visitor supporter section, simply to harass the visitor supporters. They don't have to be there. I put myself in our little safe space, and these guys came to harass us, and they started yelling at me, and they started harassing me, and they started using gay slurs towards me and my buddies and City as a whole altogether. It was really gross and disgusting. And I talked beforehand that when Klaus scored that goal, he got with this close to my face, yelling at me. And I turned to him and said, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Too much noise over here. All our fans. I can't hear you. Sorry. And that is the last time I ever looked at that man. That drove him crazy. Crazy because I wouldn't respond to his crazy crap. And it was sad. And when halfway through halftime, the guy that I talked about where he wanted Polito to score, he comes walking by me, and he is just pissed drunk. You can just see, it looks like he's full up to his cheeks with alcohol. But I ran out to him hey, buddy, remember me? Did you win your $350? This guy snapped. He fucking snapped on me. I'm sorry about that. He snapped on me. He said, what did you say to me? I was like, hey, remember me? I'm sorry. Maybe I thought you were someone else. And I walked back. And this guy ran behind me, charged into me, and almost knocked me over. And I turned around. He's this close to my face. He's like, what'd you say to me? And I told him to back up. I put my hands on his chest, and I gently pushed him. I said, you need to back up. He's come back up, and I saw an usher, and I told him to get him away from me. And the usher just stood there with his hands in his pockets. Wasn't about to intervene, wasn't about to help. And this guy finally took off. But the whole rest of the match was just negativity, to the point where I honestly felt unsafe. I'm not a small person. My buddy is 6'4". He's not a small person. His son is 6'3". We're pretty good sized people. But I, towards the end of that match, right before the match ended, I looked at him and said, "We need to leave. If they win, we have to get out of here. I don't feel safe." And we were walking, and so this is my pettiness. We were walking about halfway down the concourse, and I looked on the screen and I saw that play developing. And when I saw Totland score, and I looked around, I saw all the KC fans just went. I looked at my buddy's kid and I said, "Let's go." And we sprinted all the way back to where we were. I stood right next to this guy, and that was right when the supporters started doing the STL after we score, and I just STL, and I was right next to that cat. And we were done. I looked at it, I said, "Bye." And then we left. And like, as tense and as mean and angry as those fans were when they lost, not lost, but when they lost the lead, they pouted the entire time out of that stadium. No one said a word. It was pathetic. That's the best adjective I can have. Those fans were pathetic, to the point where I looked at a couple and I said, "Hey, look, nobody won. Nobody lost tonight. Yay, we're all friends, right?" And I said, "Nobody lost. Nobody lost." That was my experience. Oh, and then like the stadium is in a desert, and it's not as exciting to when you leave. It's like, well, there's just a giant furniture store. That's it. You got to walk half a mile to get your car. And then it's like Kansas City is still half an hour away. We were in Kansas, so that's even worse. But my buddy still had fun. I had fun. I got to experience a different stadium. But like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever be going back to Kansas City to watch a match. I don't think I ever will, because it doesn't feel like a safe place for opposing fans to be. It doesn't feel like a place. It was so sad.
That's really sad.
It's just soccer. It's
It's a game. Like, I get it, right? Like, we all love sports, right? Like, we're taking time out of our day to do this fan cast and promoting it and producing it and everything. Like, right? Like, we love watching sports. We love being part of the environment, right? But getting to the point where you start becoming verbally and physically, there's only one way to say this, abusive.
Bro, yes.
Like, why? What's the point? Like, I don't know. It just obviously went too far. It's unfortunate because, like, you know, in reality, these cities love having tourists come in because they bring in money, because they rent out hotel rooms, they eat at the restaurants, they bring money in. It's good for cities. And what's ironic is these fans are only hurting their city because of what you just said. People say, "No, I'm not going to come back to this." Right?
Yeah. And like I told you,
what a shame. What a shame.
Yeah. But again, my takeaway is I got to experience soccer with friends. And usually it's my sons that I experience it with. And I got to experience it with friends. And that was the first time that it was just my friends. I wasn't with my personal family. And that was great. I loved that experience. I loved the fact that we scored 3 goals too. That was pretty neat. And I loved the fact that we're getting physical. And I think we probably should talk about like how physical Klaus bodied the crap out of that guy. And then Durkin, I warned the kids, but I warned my buddy and his friend before. I'm like, you got to watch this kid, Durkin. He is physical and he's going to get under some skin. And boy, if he didn't.
Yeah. Speaking of which, so this is a fun question. You ready? This is kind of cutting to the chase. For you, who's the man of the match? Now, the fans, of course, picked Toland, right?
Right.
Like, of course they were going to pick him, right? But realistically, is that your man of the match?
Man, I don't know. It's either going to be like, it's going to be Am or Klaus for me, because I was like, the way like he was able to lead the passes, but like Klaus controlling the field out there, Klaus being involved in all 3 of the goals. For me, he was the man of the match, just because he was a physical force. They could not leave him alone. He still was involved in all 3 goals. So to me, it's so about you.
100%, right? Like, the thing is what we saw this game was a great lineup that really supported Klaus what he was doing. For the most part, Klaus, I felt like, was playing more of a traditional striker. There was times he was more, quote unquote, out of position and doing that more false 9 type of thing,
right,
that he likes to do. But like you said, he was involved in all 3. goals, right? The first goal, of course, was the Klaus run, which was honestly, it was just a fun looking goal, right? And then the second one was the push, the physical play that you had
Yeah.
mentioned, right? And the Totland play, which was when Klaus had that weird kind of jump, kind of pass kind of thing that Klaus does.
Yep.
Like, you don't really see a lot of our players make untraditional passes like that, but he's definitely someone to do it. And that's just talking about the goals, man. Like, I counted at least 4 or 5 shots on goal just by Klaus alone. And
Right.
one of them was one series of play, like within like 10 seconds of each other, right? So he was targeting that goal, which I love, because the more shots you take on goal, the more goals you ultimately will
Hell
score.
yeah.
Eventually they're gonna squeak in, right? What's the fun internet quote, right? You only score on the shots you take. Abraham
Yes.
Lincoln, you
Yeah.
know, obviously Wayne Gretzky, right?
Right.
But that's what I loved about seeing about Klaus being up there, is because he can do that, you know. I
Hell
would
yeah.
have to say he's probably a man of match. Obviously, you always give the hero, the guy who tied it. Like, that's not saying Tottenham didn't have a decent game. I feel like he did, you know.
Right.
Durkin, man, this guy, it's like, where's he been like all last year, you know? It's like, why didn't we have him sooner? Like,
Right.
I just love him on our team, you know. It's going to be interesting once we have Blown back, and then Ostrak and Durkin, and like who ends up sitting, because, man, I just kind of segue into the lineup. I liked this lineup, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like in baseball, but also in soccer too. I feel like when you stick with a consistent lineup, eventually, like, these players really start to learn each other. They get the feel. I just love that we basically, I think it was the exact same lineup, right?
Yeah,
Because we
it
still
was.
had Hebert that we did last week, right? It was, yeah. So I feel like this was perfect. Now, the only, not to pick on Hebert, but I did feel like he was a weak link. I think it was the first goal.
He gave up that.
Some people were saying that, yeah. People were saying Parker was out of position, but what they didn't realize is Totland was far up, so Parker had to scoot inward, which leaves Hebert as being the central defender. And it felt like he didn't really commit either way, and it just let the the attacker, make that pass, and then it was honestly easy goal at that point.
Yep.
I mean, if you guys watch it back, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, no, as soon as they broke midfield and I could see the break, I was like, this is not good. This is not going to be good. And then Hebert had like one wrong step, and then but this isn't like Hebert bashing anymore. Like, he's been pretty solid. This is a pretty good back line. I don't know what they're going to do once Nilsson gets back. I guess Hebert will go back to being like a good sub, but like Marcanic,
100%.
it's like, I think everyone still has nightmares of Marcanic being toasted by Paintsil. Well, Paintsil is a freak of nature. Paintsil's one of the fastest people in the sport, and of
He's going to
course,
beat everybody.
yeah, he would have torched anyone. But like, Marcanic is a incredibly solid. He had I think he cracked the top 8 or 10 for touches in the game. Like, he was involved in this game. Seeing Ostrak in person, I was so glad to see that man play in person. He is a freak. He is so good in person to see. Like, I was so excited. I was watching each player because I haven't got a chance to see him, and like, it was great.
Let's go back real quick, because I wanted to kind of point this out, because a lot of fans are getting really confused about Marcanic's role versus like Dewar and like others, right? So Marcanic is a really good like left back winger, right?
Yep.
So he plays more of an offensive role, right? Because if you see, a lot of the attack will kind of go through him on the left side, right?
Right.
The thing is, though, is anytime you bring one of the backs up, right, whether it's left or right, what ends up happening is you create a space behind them, right? Which is why oftentimes people are like, well, Marcanic's not playing defense, or he's always having to run backwards and stuff like that. That's because we've chosen, I think it's usually about 50% of the time, we go up that left side, right? Where Totland is more of the defensive right back, right? And like Dewar, for instance, seems to be more of that defensive and less of that Marcanic type of offensive weapon. I'm not saying they can't do it, right? Because sometimes they do go up, right? But that's what Marcanic is really good at, right? because like one of the critiques that we heard, and you probably saw this too, is that it was sometime after the 50th minute, St. Louis seemed to basically get more conservative.
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
In fact,
you could feel
there
that.
was
Yeah.
there was one player, or one Reddit user, Birds of War, awesome name by the way, awesome name. He basically asked the question, and he was basically asking like, why is Carnell getting more conservative? So he said, what has made Carnell get so conservative this year? This team still plays its best soccer on the front foot, but it seems like City is sitting back too far too often this year. Now, I will say the one problem is we did, and tell me what you saw at the park, but it did seem that we were moving to more of a lower block and quote unquote parking the bus more.
Yep.
And the problem that I didn't like about that so early on, right, is that when you play defense, you wear out, because the offense at any time, if they feel a little tired, they can just kind of pause, kind of relax, take it easy, pass around a little bit. But in defense, you're running around like crazy, and the whole team has to move. Whereas in the offense, maybe only half the team has to be running around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You see this in all sorts of sports, right? Football's the same way, right? Like if the offense is getting tired in football, right? You take a little longer in the huddle.
Yep.
Well, if you want to wear out the defense, you start going no huddle, right? It's the same kind of strategy, right? And that's why I didn't like it 30 minutes left in the game, is because eventually you're going to wear out our defense. And I just didn't like that. And then there was a couple where he had the ball in midfield and there was nobody around him. We just basically instantly gave it up. What did you see?
Yeah, I kind of got that vibe too. And it almost seemed like we started playing prevent defense. You kind of figure, like, take it back to football where it's, you don't want to give up the big play. It's almost it felt to me as a fan sitting in that stadium like we were playing to not lose at that point. And it really kind of bit us in the butt, because right around that 60 minute or so, that's Vermees actually made a sub. He doesn't sub, but he actually made a sub. He brought on Russell, and Russell kind of widened the field. They were able to kind of change their formation up a little bit. And I think we were a little flat-footed, and it really didn't seem like we were charging as much. And then the own goal happened, and then Tommy scored. It's like the couple players that they have actually did their jobs. You've got Polito and Tommy scoring. And then it seemed like it's like at that point, then we were reignited, and that our desperation, we brought on Dewar late, and then Thor came on. You know, he made an immediate impact, by the way. As soon as Thor comes on, he starts winning duels, those aerial duels. Watching him like make those he was making some of those duels on our end. He's phenomenal. And then that eventually opened up for Todd to make that score, but like
he can't.
He's wild.
He can't finish, though. And that's one thing I've noticed about Thor. I do think, though, and mark my words because I want this to go on record, whenever Thor scores, he's going to score. Oh, geez, he is going to write it down. I feel like he's going to score like the next game after that, because anytime he seems to get the ball in the box, he seems to rush. And he seems like he just gets almost anxious with that ball in the box.
Sure.
Watch, right? It happened last time. I think he was the one that kicked it like way over the net. Like he just kind of rushed his kick, and then it was a wasted kick. Like, I mean, he's getting in position. If he gets to a point where he just more calmly attacks, I think this man.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Yeah,
good spider vibes. Spider-Man tingly. What is that called?
Spider sense.
Man, spider sense. Oh man, I'm gonna lose my like geek card here. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You got your
I'm
geek
gonna get canceled by all the geeks here.
That's right. So like a couple of those goals,
Game of Thrones play.
When Klaus scored his goal, that was like a standard cool Klaus score. But like when Celio kicked that bomb, I mean, he bombed like we were. It's just like the way he was gearing up. You're like, shit, he's gonna kick it, and it's like he's gonna go over. No, man, it was just a laser. Emilio was frustrated the entire night. It was so great to see him do that. And then like Santo from the footy was talking about like with both Klaus and Silo being Brazilian, like they have that familiar relationship. It's almost like watching Klaus and Nico last year. Like
Geo.
they're
Yep.
just clicking, and it's so great to see. Like that partnership is there. They trust each other. Watching this team, isn't it weird that this draw feels like an absolute win because we came back, but like this was a solid game the entire, except for that 50 through like 70 where it felt like we were parking to us. It felt like we were trying to not lose the match. We needed to get kicked in the teeth by going down. But like this is not feeling I've been saying where it's like I never felt like we were going to lose that match. I never did. And I was telling my buddy, like, you got to watch this team the entire time. You can't give up on them. And 91 minutes into this damn game, Totland skips over, I think it might have been Polito, skips right over him. And hangs Mealy out to dry. He was big mad. Mealy was big mad. And that was it. And then, like, did you happen to see on the live broadcast how awkward the game ended? We were setting up for a corner kick, and they just called the game. Like, it was right after the 93rd minute. Yes, the time is essentially expired, but like it seemed like we were getting ready for a corner kick down there, and they just called it. And like it was so weird, just came out of the blue. But with the way that stadium was turning, it was probably for the best anyway.
No, they probably called it at the right time, right? You know.
Yes.
I know sometimes the center ref will actually tell the teams, hey, this is the last possession. Like they'll actually say that like after let's say a throw in or a free kick, and then the players know it. I get it. I mean, you got to call it at some point, you know. And honestly, like you said, this was a win for us, right? I think in MLS, I think the stat is something. It's ridiculous across all sports. Soccer has the highest home winning percentage. Right? Yeah. Like baseball is like 52% of the time the home team wins. Soccer, it's like 70%, right?
Yeah.
The thing is that us getting this 1 point is a win. And I'll tell you, you know what the other win is? There's some other wins here, right? One, we scored a lot of goals, right? There's nothing worse than the 0-0 draw, right? Because that just tells you your offensive. You can't win unless you have an offense. Great, right? And I think some of their goals got a little lucky, right? And the other thing is his clause. Santa's back, man.
He's back. Delivering those packages, baby.
He's in good form. I mean, man of the match, in my opinion. So before we go, just the new rules. What did you think? Because you were there. You had the supporter section involved, which was awesome. Tell me about that.
Okay, so one of the new rules is if you fall down and you are injured for more than 15 seconds, the medical staff has to come on and you have to be, evaluated for 2 minutes, and your team's down for 2 minutes. And this Rosero guy, by the way, I'm thinking about when they come here, like I'm thinking about making some signs and handing out like paper binkies and like Rosero daycare company, because this guy was a big baby the whole match. And I'm thinking like, I can imagine it now, like a cardboard cutout, the Rosero daycare. And maybe I have one of my sons handing out this little paper slips and here's a binky for him, because this cat was just crying the whole match. So he falls early in the match. He's complaining the whole time. And as he is laying there, the supporter section, which they were right in front of us, starts counting 16, 17, 18. It's just deafening in the whole stadium. 19, 20. And it got to like 55. And he stood up and they started the match and he went right back in. And that was kind of madness because we didn't know what was going on. And it turns out that they were considering that a head injury. And a head injury is not part of that 15 seconds, where I guess they can evaluate as long as you need. But the fact that you can still jump right back in is still not great. If you are possibly concussed for 50 seconds in a match, you're concussed for 2 minutes. You need to go to the side. And he jumped right back in. He was magically fine. And I wish we would have known that, but like, it was hilarious watching the supporter section. And then I mentioned, like, before we started recording, like right after that, every time this dude touched the ball, he was getting booed. And because we were so loud and because we were so powerful in that stadium, it probably reverberated throughout the entire stadium. And I hope he gets booed to the teeth when he comes here. And so like we experienced that a little bit. I love seeing the red card, the VAR announcement. The referee says, after further review, and it's like, it was hilarious watching that, but this is going to be good for the sport. I I guess they are enforcing the quick runoff for subs because they were on and off real quick. I guess that's really cool too. So, what are your opinions on what you saw?
Yeah, it's like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. I think it's going to be plus or minus, right? Like 15 seconds is not a long time, right? So like let's say one of their players just slams into one of our guys, right? And it's not a yellow card. Right? Yeah, that's going to sting for a minute, right? I think it's a little tough to ask a guy to get up right away because the other team could use it to their advantage of quote unquote trying to hurt the other guy.
Yeah.
And then trying to knock somebody off for like a 2-minute red card, essentially, right? Because you're playing down, right? And just wait. Our team at some point is going to be down like 2-1 in the 88th minute, and this is going to happen, and it's going to be at a really horribly inopportune time.
Right.
So that's the only thing that it's tough. But I think overall, I think it's going to be better because ultimately people don't want to watch these players squirming on the ground for 2 minutes, right?
Well, because that's
they want to watch the game. Come on, get going.
Because that's what soccer was known for years, is the players flopping. And in fact, my buddy's son was asking about that, and my buddy was like, "Yeah, but I think the NBA is even worse for flops." And we kind of had that discussion. And then this is going to prevent a player. Now, sometimes you get cleated right in the shin, gonna hurt. I get that. You get stepped on, it's gonna hurt. But we can't be wasting that much time. And this Rosero guy led up to 7 extra minutes in the first half for stoppage time. His little antics there, but in fact that led to us getting our second goal. Celio got his goal in stoppage time. So hey, thank you, Rosero. Thank you from the bottom of BRB's fancast. Thank you for giving us that extra time. Solid.
There we go.
Clown.
Well, I mean, we could talk all day about this game, but it's the time that we hate.
Parting is such we sorrow.
Time to go. So long. Farewell. Can I get a go, City?
All for City, baby. Ravioli boys. Oh, by the way, that was one thing my buddy's like, why are these guys wearing raviolis? What is, and I was like, oh, okay. So, and I had to explain the whole toasted ravioli thing, and they loved it. They're like, that is so cool. That is so cool. Go Battlehawks. No, that's awesome. Woo-hoo! Yeah, call, baby. Go City, go Hawks, go Birds. Win a couple games. That'll be fun. Hey, you know what? City, baby.
All right, well, go City. Until next time.